Hi, everyone. Welcome to Valentine's Day on LinkedIn with my favorite Valentine today, Sue Ellson from Melbourne, Australia. I hadn't actually thought about wearing red. I don't really have a lot of red to wear, unfortunately. But we actually wanted to have a conversation today about, the appropriate way to handle things on LinkedIn. I actually did a post today that LinkedIn is not Tinder or anything like that. So, take it away. Sue, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit. I know you're coming in from Melbourne, Australia, so it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon here. What time is it over there?
7 a.m. on Wednesday.
So happy after Valentine's Day.
Yes, I've already lived through Valentine's Day. So, yes, it's all over and done with here in Australia. So I'm sure there's both a lot of happy and perhaps a few sad people as well. But that's okay. We're in good company today.
Great. So,
and I think you should also mention what you're doing for your lovely wife on Valentine's Day, because I'm somebody who hasn't been in a serious relationship since 2005, but you've been in one for a lot longer than that.
Yes, I have. And actually, what I've been doing today, it's funny because going out on Valentine's Day is one of the worst things you can possibly do. So I'm actually cooking for my wife.
Oh, how lovely. Oh, that's really sweet.
Now, cooking for me is barbecuing, though, just to be fair.
It doesn't matter. It's all good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. When you mentioned that we could catch up on the 14th of February, I thought, well, we should talk about being a Valentine. And so that is the theme of this presentation. And welcome to everybody from the US, from Australia, and from wherever you are in the world. It's great to be with you. And I really thank Kenneth for the opportunity. I think this is about the third presentation we've done together.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and it's funny because I was trying to think back how we first met. I don't know if it was through this networking event or if it was just someone else in Australia. It might have actually been, I'm trying to think.
Well, I know, aren't we both in one of those messaging groups with lots of other LinkedIn experts? I'd suggest it would probably be from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so a messaging group on LinkedIn is a fantastic way to keep in touch with people, and I think better than groups really if it's an active one. So yeah, all right. Well, I'll get into the slides. I really welcome conversation in this presentation. So Kenneth, if you see anything come up in the chat or anybody wants to add something, I would really love to hear from.
Sure. I'm just checking a bunch of people I know are chiming in here. Sue Griffey coming up. We're going to be seeing Sue very soon. Sandra Weiss coming in from San Francisco, Christine Dykman, and I'll get to a couple of others later on, but definitely go for it.
Yes, excellent. All right, that's good to hear. So what will I cover today? I'm going to do some introductions and answer the question, can you date on LinkedIn? How can you protect yourself whilst dating? And I realize that there are some people here who are not looking for dating information. They're just looking for general LinkedIn information.
Can you make it as a slideshow so we can see it a little better?
I do have it as a slideshow from my end, so I'm not
just
quite
go select slideshow at the top.
Okay, let me have a look.
No, slideshow at the top screen. Slideshow at the top and select that.
Ah, I see. Yeah. It says picture in picture.
No, slideshow at the top next to record and traditions in the home screen.
Doesn't say that on my screen.
Okay, well,
it says stop screen.
No, then fine. Then that might just be a thing. All right, let's just keep going.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. That's a shame. But at least I can see you now from this screen, so that's an improvement. But there's only a picture-in-picture choice.
Okay. Well,
or settings, and no, it doesn't bring that up.
Wait. Well, underneath there, do you see across the top home and all those things? Never mind. Mind.
All right. Well, we'll keep tracking. Sure. I can try. Yeah, it doesn't want to do it.
No worries. But
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Let me go back into here. Okay, so can you date on LinkedIn? How can you protect yourself while just dating? How can you use LinkedIn for personal reasons? So there's other ways to use LinkedIn to connect with people. And interestingly, I watch a lot of different people on social media. And one of them said recently, online dating doesn't or never really worked for them, but she met the love of her life by going surfing. So they shared interests. So I'll be touching on that as we go through. Okay. Now, as a result of turning up, this is a free event, but I always like to offer something. So on my sueellson.com website, you can download those different items and you can also check out my pricing. And I also invite you to follow me on social media. Every time I do a presentation, I actually give the stats. So if you go back and look at one of my previous presentations, you can see how many followers and so on. Obviously, LinkedIn is my preferred platform because I've got a lot more connections there than on any of the others. But I would love some more subscribers on YouTube if you're up for that as well.
So first of
Now,
all,
yes.
Meryl wanted to know if you're connected with Anna McAfee.
Yes, and for quite some time too. And she, yes, is another Australian. I know there's about 24 million of them, but yes, I am connected to
Oh,
Anna McPhee.
great.
So I've met her online on an event, not in person, but I think she's done quite a bit of work with Australian expatriates as well. So thank you
Sure.
for the shout out. So 5 books. First one came out in 2016, which was on LinkedIn, and my latest on the 23rd of January this year was also on LinkedIn, and it's the step-by-step guide to help you update your LinkedIn profile. You can find it on Amazon or 120wayspublishing.com. So for those of you who don't know me, my career started 6 days after secondary school at Westpac, which is Australia's first bank. I worked there for 11 years in Adelaide in South Australia. And then I moved interstate to Melbourne in Victoria, got a job, found out I was pregnant, got sacked when I was pregnant. And that was all in 1994. And basically, I haven't had a real job since. So I've done lots of really interesting things. I'm a member of the Melbourne Press Club, which is for journalists and public relations professionals, the Career Development Association of Australia, helping people with their careers, the Australian Society of Authors, Writers Victoria, which is the same kind of thing, but in my state, and the Small Press Network, which supports small presses because I've independently published my books. My first website went online in 2001, newcomersnetwork.com, and 120 Ways Publishing is where my books are. So this presentation is for all genders, backgrounds, beliefs, locations, anyone who uses LinkedIn or who is dating at the moment. And the suggestions and recommendations are based on my professional recruiting and dating experience. I've got a few horror stories to share, which I'm sure anybody who's been dating would have, but it's not professional advice for your personal circumstances. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully, Ken and I and you will all have fun and it will be a respectful and safe environment. And I hope you get to learn lots of new and exciting things as well. So if you can tell us in the chat if that facility is available, I'm not sure whether it is or not. If you're looking for LinkedIn information, pop an L in, D for dating information, P just because you like Kenneth or me, or O for other, and whether you're in Australia, the US, or some other country. So, Kenneth, can you see the chat?
I will. Just
You
to let
there?
you know, there's about a 30-second delay from the time you and I chat. So
Right.
I will definitely keep you oh, I got a P right now. I got a
A
P.
P.
A
Yes,
P,
I gathered
yay.
there's quite a few people who love you, Kenneth. So that's really fantastic.
Yes.
And yeah, great to have your support and thank you for joining us. So there are some extra resources on my website. I run an free webinar every month, and I know that you run a lot of free events for job seekers, Kenneth. So do you want to quickly touch on some of those for people from my audience who don't know you?
Sure. Well, I do a LinkedIn event every Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
1 to 2. What I've also started to do is do a career volunteer career thing for the state of New Jersey. I'm actually finishing up a contract for them right now. We're building a whole interface platform there. But I think above
Lovely.
all, I just love to have chats about LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn nerd. I'm an introvert, which I've
Yes.
shared many times before. Um, it's been helpful for me to get to understand this platform. But above all, For me, it's just been paying it forward. Because
Yes.
like you, I've been in and out of transition before, and just to let you know.
Yes. Thank you.
So,
And
so Sue, when you're done, I have the presentation. Just to let everyone know, I will put the presentation up and share it afterward,
mm,
and just in case it's a little hard for you to read that way.
yes.
So just to make sure, and you need to watch this on a replay later on, you can follow there. So go ahead.
Absolutely. And the presentation is also live on my website if you'd like to check that out. Now, I have written some articles about love before, so it doesn't seem to be changing slides at all now. And there's 8 solutions to loneliness that don't require a romantic relationship. There's other articles on 52 ways to say I love you. Or use the 5 love languages for yourself, which is on Thought Catalog, which is a US publication. Self-love I've written about as well, and I've written over 100 poems have been published, and there's a number of them talking about love in there. So feel free to check those links out at some later stage. So quick dating stories. I thought I'd share some gruesome things. I went to a conference in Geelong, Victoria, which is regional Victoria, and I met a man who used LinkedIn for dating, and he decided that he would connect with HR professionals, people in human resources, because he thought they would be nice, considerate women who would consider his dating request. And he actually told me he had more success on LinkedIn than he did on dating apps. And of course, it's not allowed, but that's the story he told me. So I
But
thought I'd
Sue,
share that funny one.
how,
Yeah,
how about for now we just do this as you and I chatting, so that
sure.
I think that'll be a lot better.
Yes.
Let's just do that. Okay, good.
Yeah,
That way
absolutely.
they can see our 2 wonderful faces, and they can see.
All right. And yes, they can definitely check out the presentation
Right,
afterwards. I will
definitely.
just make the screen a little bit smaller so I can. The reason I do a presentation is so that I can stick to and get through quite a lot of content. And for anybody who is neurodiverse, they have said that they really appreciate having the written text on the screen. So
Sure.
that's the main reason for doing it. So let me go back to the other one. Okay, the next story was I was dating and I met this guy, and I won't tell you his name because it was a very common name, but let's just say Roger Smith, a name that might have been given to lots of people. And I was a bit concerned because he was telling me all these stories and I wasn't sure whether he was really Roger Smith or not. So what I did is I took a copy of his photo from the online dating website and I put it into Google image search. So if you go to google.com and you look at the camera, you upload the image, and sure enough, Roger Smith's LinkedIn photo was exactly the same. And so I was able to verify everything he had told me. So well done, we'll say Roger, for this example. So you can use a Google image search to see if that person has used that image online. Now, what I did as a little experiment yesterday was I took an image off the eHarmony website. I don't have any affiliations with any dating websites, by the way, but that was just one that came up when I said top dating websites. I don't actually use it. And what happened was I took a screenshot of that image and it actually showed it on some San Francisco website that was talking about different dating websites. So the Google image search will find that image, not just on LinkedIn, it will actually find that image on, in theory, any website. So just keep that in mind. Now, the next thing is I was talking to a person online and all of a sudden things went strange and he disappeared. And I knew he was overweight and I thought, oh no, what if he's had a heart attack? And I couldn't reach him. And I thought, what do I do? Well, of course, the only thing I could do was ring the police. And so the police, I spoke to them and they said, well, what's his date of birth? And because that's the way they identify a lot of people here in Australia. And so I looked up his LinkedIn profile. By the way, I wasn't connected to him on LinkedIn at this stage because I only met him online. But I Googled what he'd told me, his first name, where he worked. I knew he was in Melbourne. And I actually found someone's LinkedIn profile that didn't have the surname, but I saw that this person was connected to someone I did know. So I contacted that person, and it was on a Sunday of all things. And she said, oh, this is just some story of some guy who's wasting your time. Don't worry about it. And anyway, she says, oh, but I'm connected and this is his surname. So she gave me his surname. So then I was able to look more specifically at his LinkedIn profile, and I saw his month and day of birth, and he already had told me how old he was. So therefore, when I rang the police, I was able to give them his date of birth. So I'm just warning you, if I can get the date of birth that easily out of the internet, anybody can get your date of birth out of the internet. And that can be used to forge your identity and steal money from you. So please do not put your date of birth in anything online, and don't give it out either. If you meet people, oh, when's your birthday? I'd love to celebrate your birthday. And just make up some other date, so that if they do try and forge your identity, then the date is incorrect. Okay, now the next thing is, I've done some work with politicians, and female politicians cop a lot of trolls and abuse online. So one of the things to be aware of is that if you get the sense that you're being scammed, take a screenshot of the dialogue that you're having with this person, because quite often what scammers will do is they will unmatch you or delete the connection on the dating app, and then you've got no way of being able to report them either to the dating app or to anybody else. But if you've got screenshots, then you can do that. So, and that can prevent somebody else being, having issues with it. Also, I went on this one date, and this guy says, I don't like those women who write, I'm not interested in one night stands. And the reason, he said, well, they can't be very good at sex if they if they only ever have one night stands, or something to that effect. So I just want you to be careful about what you write online, either on a dating app or on LinkedIn, or more generally, because people do read this stuff and then they infer information about you from it. So just be aware of that. I have the location set on my phone so that if I take photos, it tells me where it was, because I reuse my images in social media posts. But if you're putting those images directly onto the internet, it will show your geolocation, which is not necessarily a good idea to share where you live online. Be aware of the keywords. So I wrote on one of my dating profiles many years ago, I'm not interested in horse racing or gambling. And then the algorithm detected that, well, maybe she is interested in those things. And so it sent me lots of people who liked horse racing and gambling. So I had to use words that told people what I wanted, but not what I didn't want, to make sure that I attracted the right people. I hope that makes sense. But the same thing applies on LinkedIn. Don't say you don't want something. Talk about what you do want.
So let me ask you a question. What can
Yes.
men do? What can men do? Because this is, there's a lot of bad actors out there. And my whole thing is, we have to not only help you, but we have to let these guys know that they're off base.
Well, calling out behavior is really important. And so these female politicians, they've got choices. They can delete, they can respond, and they can get other people to respond on their behalf. And that third one is the nicest one. So if you call out the behavior on our behalf, then that's very helpful to us. So yes, and sometimes there are inappropriate comments. Regardless of how inappropriate any comment I receive is, I will always respond respectfully. Or when I'm on the Daily Mail website and I look at all the comments that I receive there's a lot of trolls and they say really horrid things. And I got advice from the person at the Daily Mail, and they said just ignore it. So that's the other option there as well. I presume we don't have any major technical issue there?
Nope. I'm actually just dealing with my battery here. So.
All right, got it. All good. Also, I believe courtesy is contagious. It was an expression that was on bumper stickers around Australia many years ago. But there's no need to be nasty, even if you have a bad experience online and somebody also connects with you on LinkedIn. Please, keep it nice. And if you've got time, watch that YouTube video. It's a recording of Jimmy from LinkedIn. And what he did was he left a voice message for Candace on LinkedIn. And it was just to introduce himself and say hello. So on LinkedIn, you can leave voice messages. But Candace popped that video on Twitter and it blew up. And everybody was stirring Jimmy for the way he pronounced his name and everything. And it was really quite funny. So I thought I'd just share that with you. Apparently he's a really nice guy. He wasn't trying to date her, but the tone of it was just hysterical. So the big question is, can you date on LinkedIn? Well, sadly, no, you cannot date on LinkedIn. There are something called the professional community policies, and it clearly states in there that you are not allowed to date. They also have a sexual harassment and unwanted advances policy as well. So if you want to check that out, you can via the slides. And also in the LinkedIn user agreement, you cannot create a false profile and you're not allowed to misuse the service. And if you are concerned about your personal safety, LinkedIn has something called the LinkedIn Safety Center at safety.linkedin.com. So if you have experienced unfortunate things on the platform, there are a number of strategies there to help you feel safe on the platform. So how can you protect yourself whilst dating? I've got 10 tips here. Do not, as I've already stated, list your date of birth. Make sure you use a different photo on LinkedIn to what you have on your dating profile, so you can't get that reverse image search. And if you have a high personal profile, as in you're quite well known in your industry, or you are a celebrity of some sort, or it could be one of your clients as a celebrity, if you are going to go on the dating websites, you might choose to turn off the visibility of your LinkedIn profile for a period of time, or you may even choose to hibernate your LinkedIn profile so people can't check you out online. So there are two options as well. There is a setting to turn off who can see your connections. So the benefit of this is that if somebody does find you on LinkedIn, unless you and I are both connected to Mary, you won't see who else I'm connected to. You'll see that I'm connected to Mary because you're connected to Mary, but you won't see all the other people I'm connected to. So you can't sort of ask around about me. So that may make you feel more comfortable. And there's a whole lot of other visibility settings. Do you want your email address visible? Do you want people to message you? Do you want your photo to be shown? There's a whole bunch of others. You can also, if you want to check someone out and you do have their name, you can look at them anonymously so they never know that you looked at them. So there's a link in the slides to change that preference, and so that you can look at other LinkedIn profiles in private mode. That's another great job search strategy if you're checking out potential employers or recruiters or something like that. And please, 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 if you get any bad behavior on LinkedIn, report it, block them, take screenshots if you need to, but do call it out. Whether you're the victim or you're a friend of someone, always call it out. And you can also report and block messages. So in the messaging screen on LinkedIn, there's 3 dots at the top, and you can report or block. You could also mute someone. So that means that you can still keep the connection with them, but they can't message you. So that's another option. You also need to be aware of the impact of any of your visual content online. So one of the things that really does concern me is years ago, there was this woman who used to put a lot of video content on LinkedIn, and quite often she would be wearing a strapless top. And so the camera was situated above her garment. So it actually looked like she was talking on camera in the nude. And she certainly had a lot of followers of her video content, but I just didn't feel that that was an appropriate camera angle or garment to wear when she was producing video content on a professional platform. So please keep that in mind. Also, I am not a fan of low neck garments, because what happens is people then look at your neck and chest instead of your face and your eyes in particular. So I always recommend that people wear a high neck garment in their profile photo. And also, I don't share personal stories. Now, I know a lot of people will put selfies on LinkedIn. They will talk about their life. One person put a video on saying, I broke up with my boyfriend on the weekend and I drank too much. And she put this on LinkedIn. And that's definitely not the right place to put it either. And also, if you are reporting someone, LinkedIn lets you know that they don't advise the person you're reporting that you've reported them. So it's quite safe to be able to report them. Okay, so how can you use LinkedIn? Not necessarily for dating and finding someone, but just connecting with people and reaching more people and meeting people perhaps with a similar interest. So first of all, when you are out and about at a networking event or even at a mixer or at a friend's party, you can open the LinkedIn app on your mobile phone. And I'll show you shortly how to do it, but you can connect with people immediately on the spot on LinkedIn. It doesn't look quite as creepy as following one another on Instagram or Facebook or some other platform. So it just looks a little bit more professional. So that way you can keep in touch and, see what happens later on. You can also find an event. So if you go to linkedin.com/events, there's lots of events that you can look at on LinkedIn and find something with a similar interest group to you. You can also find a group on LinkedIn because there's lots of different groups. You can also complete your own due diligence. So if you know their name, you can look at their profile whilst you're not signed into LinkedIn, or when you're on that private mode, you can see if their story matches. So that Roger Smith guy, I wasn't sure whether he was telling me the truth or not, but when I found his LinkedIn profile, everything he'd told me matched up with what was on his LinkedIn profile. And what does their history and activity tell you about them? So if they've not been able to have a job for longer than 6 months, do you think they'd be suitable for a commitment? Some people, that's the nature of their work. But I've done lots of different things, but definitely still ready for a committed relationship if the right person comes along. And also, some people have a very minuscule, bare bones LinkedIn profile with hardly any information on it at all. So please don't judge them for that. It could just be that they're another introvert and they don't like sharing their story online. And are they on a dating app to sell you something? So some people, like one person I met, the same person who said he didn't like one night stands people, he turned around and said that, he invited me to his workshop on the weekend, and I really felt like he was just using it to get recruits for his workshop. So that was a bit creepy as well. And don't forget, you can connect with your colleagues at work. So particularly if you're in a large organization, a lot of people see each other over the water cooler or in Zoom meetings or whatever, but they don't think to actually connect with one another. Now, when you look at your colleague's profile, you might say, oh, we share an interest in golf. Maybe I could ask that person out for golf at some stage. And so, or they might know somebody else who's into golf, and then they can refer me to another golfer. So keep that in mind, that it's good to know who you work with and what their interests are. I definitely recommend that you update your own LinkedIn profile. Like Kenneth and I are raving fans of your LinkedIn profile. So share your story online, put your best foot forward, keep it interesting. I do incorporate some personal information about how I like dancing and walking and catching up with friends. I've actually put that on my LinkedIn profile. On my SueEllson.com website, on my About page, I've put in a little story about my why I do what I do. So, you can do that as well. Give and receive skill endorsements and recommendations to one another. So I think it's always nice to acknowledge people. Showcase your style in your content, your comments, your messaging, your featured area on your LinkedIn profile, your banner image up the top, your profile picture, your website, and decide if you'd like your email address to be public or not. Build your network of friends. So how many of your friends are connected with you on LinkedIn? If they see you on LinkedIn and they know that what your interests are, and then they've got some great friend that they can recommend you to that shares the same interest. That's a really great way that they might think of introducing you to somebody that they've met.
So
And also,
I want to say something. I need. This was a learning experience. While this was going on, I was having the old technical issues here at home.
yes.
So I want to thank you very much, Sue, for keeping things going, because I've learned anything can happen. I have to apologize for not showing my pretty face. I'm sure it was even better
Oh,
without my face on there. But
no.
appreciate you very much, and thank everyone here for staying on. But I wanted to make sure, in case you're wondering where I was, I did not leave you guys.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't get it. No.
No, I know, but it's but I care very much about my audience. So I'm sorry, Sue. So thank you
That's
very
all right.
much. Carry
Oh,
on.
good.
Carry on.
Carry on. We're nearly at the end. And also remember that everybody is going to Google you, and LinkedIn is highly optimized for names. So 75% of people will Google you before a job interview, 95% before an offer. So you can be quite sure if somebody's met you or heard about you, they're going to Google you. And if you've changed your LinkedIn URL, you're highly likely to appear in search results for your name. Now, the other thing is, when you do a search on LinkedIn, you can't find everybody, the 884 million people who are there. You can't actually see everyone's profile unless you're connected to somebody who's connected to them, etc., etc. So your other option is to do something called a Google Advanced Search. So you can put in quotation marks what you do know about the person. So this person who I had to try and find, I put their details in the Google Advanced Search. And then down further on the screen, it says site or domain, and you put linkedin.com. So a Google Advanced Search will search the whole of LinkedIn. So not just your network and your extended network, but the entire LinkedIn database. So that can be very helpful. Also in the slides, I talk about how you can connect using your mobile phone. So on the LinkedIn app, when you open it up, you press in the search box, and then on the top right, there's some little dots, and you press that, and then you will then get a scan code. So I'll just do it on my phone now so I can show you that. So you get a little QR code, which many of us have seen during COVID. And on the right of that, it says scan. So that turns on your camera. So when you scan the other person's code when you're out and about with someone, what you can actually do is when their profile pops up on your screen of your phone, you can press the three dots and personalize the invite. Nice to meet you at Kenneth's networking event, and then you can send off the request. So it's much nicer to do that so they remember where they met you than it is to just press connect or follow. And finally, I've listed in the slides some details of the next event I'm hosting for free, which is LinkedIn for social media marketing and digital strategy professionals, because I find a lot of people in the social media world, LinkedIn is the poor relation and they hardly use LinkedIn as part of their social strategy. So I want to remind them of the fabulous things that LinkedIn can do. I've also provided a link to my previous and future webinars so that you can look at those. It's all free. You don't have to register. You can just check them out at any time. You can check out my latest offer at sueellson.com/latest-offer. And I've got
I have a
details of
question
my
here.
book. Yes.
Can you use a scan code to a business page? Now, do you mean the business
Yes,
page? Yes. Okay.
you could. And scan code, what you do is you go to the internet with your link to whatever it is you want, and you say a free LinkedIn QR code generator. So you put the link to your company page, and then you create a QR code. You could have that as a photo on your phone, and you could, definitely do that. I recommend that when people do presentations, when they're out and about, that they put a QR code to their Google review link or to their website or to their contact page, which I do. That's all.
So how do you find the QR code? Because you just showed it. So what are the steps to actually get to it?
So press in the search box on the LinkedIn app. It's only in the LinkedIn app, and then the dots on the top right-hand side, and that will bring up that scan code feature.
So I'm wondering if there are any other questions that people have about this. I know from a Valentine's Day perspective, it's an extremely challenging time for some people, and other people it's wonderful. But I feel it's so important for women to feel comfortable in sharing what they need to share on this platform and not worry
Mm,
about being bullied or being called to task. And
yes.
it's something which I really wish I had an answer to. I wish LinkedIn had an answer to it, honestly, but they don't. And that's the biggest challenge of all.
Yes. Look, I've been online since 2001, but everything I put online is what I classify as friendly and professional. So there's not the personal story. So if I'm not sharing a personal story, I don't invite that kind of attention to my LinkedIn profile. And I never make anything about me. So it's always about what can I do for other people? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the nature of the content I share. And even if somebody responds negatively, like I did have an instance where somebody wrote a comment, and because I'm an ex-banker and generally suspicious, I knew something was up, right? Now, the best thing to do is to take a query off social media and have it as a direct message. So what I did in this case is I responded politely on LinkedIn, and then I messaged the person and I said, I asked if everything was okay. And then he started threatening me and my children, and he made some inappropriate comments. So naturally, the first thing I did was call the police and explain what had happened. And this man had told me where he lived. He was actually interstate in South Australia, and I knew his name. Now, it turns out the police told me on the telephone, oh, yes, we know him, So and I thought, not really appropriate for the police to tell me that. But anyway, we won't go there. And they did what they called a welfare check. So they went round to his house to visit him. Now, then this guy contacted me and said, thank you for calling the police, because I knew you would. And I've tried to speak to the police previously and they wouldn't listen to me. But I targeted you because you look like the sort of person who would report it to the police. And then I would get the opportunity to say that. And I said, so I wrote back to him and I said, look, it was inappropriate that you did that to me. So I suggest that from now on, he was ex-military. So I understood that it was all part of his experience and trauma from being in the military. And I said, what you need to do now is make the most of your life, because you live in a beautiful part of the world, and get involved in voluntary work. And he said, well, as it turns out, I was my happiest when I was doing voluntary work. And that's the last I ever heard of him. But I did report it. I report everything, and I've always done it forever. So I think as women, what we need to do is we need to remember we do have the support and love of males in our lives, and we need to remember that. And we need to remember that we are not victims and that there is a way to handle these things. And if we do feel like we're standing on shaky ground, to sort of grab the hand of our virtual brothers or, fathers or
Right.
uncles or whoever we think of them as, and remember that, it's quite often an issue the other person has. It's not necessarily something to do with us. And as I said, I always wear high neck garments, not because I'm prudish, but because I want people to see me as a person, not as a piece of flesh.
No, I agree. I think, I think there's a certain context to it. And I think it's so
Yes,
important to keep calling it out and
yes,
acknowledging it, because you want to have a safe place. And you
you
don't
do.
even know sometimes when you're saying the wrong thing. And
No,
and so I think to some extent, I think especially on a platform like this, connect with everyone here and watch the recording. You know,
mm,
I do these, and I'm always learning too. And when
yes,
I don't realize I'm doing something, I want someone to let me know that it's not appropriate. Because if I don't know, how can I be able to respond? So I think
yes.
that's so important. I mean, I've learned so much about myself and about others, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, no, and it's good to be curious and to be open-minded and to think the positive thing before the negative thing, because I think it's very easy to get into that cycle. And I've got a friend who says she hates men. I'm kind of sad because not all men are bad. So it's an interesting
So a
experience.
couple of
But
things. Brenda actually, I'm happy she's here. She wrote this whole content, and
yes,
I think it is so important for all of us to read it and to be aware of it, because if you don't know what bad behavior is, it's really hard to be able to call it out. And women
mm,
deal with stuff that we don't as guys, fair or not fair.
yeah,
Just to answer one question, when someone says they're attending this, it doesn't mean
yes,
they're physically on this event. It could be that they
no,
want to hear it later on, or
yes,
they may have a conflict.
yes,
So I know that I would love to have hundreds upon thousands of people here, but I'm just as happy with a nice, quiet, intent, audience. I think that is so
yes,
so important, and um, you know, I it's really hard at times to know what the right thing is to do on Valentine's Day. People have Valentine's Day. It's their first Valentine's Day without their mom, or without their child, or without a friend, and that's not easy. And I think I'm kind of mindful of that when I even do some posting. Maybe a positive day for some, but not for others.
yeah. There's a Professor Gary Martin here in Australia and in Western Australia, and he wrote a piece on singles shaming. It's an excellent piece about how many singles are shamed on Valentine's Day for not having someone in their life. And he reminded me of that 8 solutions for loneliness that don't require a romantic relationship, because I've been single for, such a long time. I've dated on and off, but I,
Right.
I haven't had someone to live with, and I haven't had someone to witness my life for a very long time. So it requires me to rely on my friends and to do things for others and to share that type of content, and to remember that I'm not just a day. But yes, the period of the year that I dislike the most is Christmas, New Year, Valentine's
Mhm.
Day. So the 15th of February is like celebration day for me. I've done it for another year and I'm onwards and upwards. And I
I think
think that that's the way I see
I
it.
think another bad day is Mother's Day for
Yes,
there's couples that can't have kids, don't want kids, lost kids. These holidays, you have to think about everyone.
you do. Absolutely. I wish they would cancel Christmas. Christmas to me is the worst one, because there's so much lead up and build up to it. And another interesting thing that Marisa Peer from the UK said, in Valentine's Day in the US, everybody gets a Valentine's Day card. Like, it's your friends, it's your lovers, it's whoever it is. But in the UK and here in Australia, it's very much designed for your romantic partner, and there's a lot of expectation that you should do something on that particular day. And I disagree with that whole philosophy, because why does the 14th of February matter more than the 13th or the 24th or any other day of the year? Like, to me, you should be respectful to somebody all the time, and you should always be nice to the people you love, and understanding of different situations. So yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. The other thing, just going back
Right,
to
on the
that
bright
point.
side, you can go tomorrow and buy the half price chocolate. I do that. I do that after every holiday. I do that after
Excellent.
Halloween and get the half
Yes.
price candy. I do it after because I mean, I love chocolate, but especially
Yes.
now, I'm not gonna, I'd rather wait a day.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I love your thoughts on that.
No
Thank you,
worries.
Scott. Good to have some humor in all of this. That's
Yes, definitely.
fantastic. Look, the other thing is, in terms of crisis management. So, say you do have an unfortunate experience on LinkedIn, or on online more generally, like something terrible happens and your organization gets bad press or something like that. Most crises last apparently 19 hours. So if you can get through that first 19 hours, so like that only leaves 5 hours of the rest of the day on Valentine's Day. But, if you can get through those 19 hours, in most cases, you'll be over the worst of it. So have a cup of tea, have a nap, do whatever it takes just to get through that 19 hours, and then life goes on. So I've found that to be of a great comfort, that no crisis, no matter how bad, you're kind of over the real worst shock of it in that first 19 hours, and then you can sort of get back to some sense of normality after that.
Well, I want to thank you for chiming in the day after Valentine's Day on this Valentine's Day show. This is such an important conversation, and I want to, I want to continue conversations like this because we need to have awareness. And I know we were talking about a topic discussion for today, and I thought this was like a very interesting tie-in, for sure.
Yes. No, it took a lot of work to prepare the presentation. So if you do have a moment to go through the slides, I would really appreciate it, because I thought long and hard about this topic, about what is important for me to share. And look, I feel sorry for men too, because a lot of men, there's an expression that's doing the rounds about toxic masculinity at the moment. So a lot of men feel that anything they do that is masculine will be perceived negatively. So I really feel, because there's a lot of sensitive men out there, and they cop this abuse just because they were a male, and that's not fair either. So I'm very conscious of all of these issues, and on emotional days, the feelings associated with it will bubble up and will appear more intense. So I don't recommend you turn to the bottle or any of those kind of techniques, but go for a walk and spend some time in fresh air and treat yourself. I went to my local supermarket and bought these really lovely dark plums, because it's still summer here in Australia. And that was my special treat, to have some dark plums. And so just remember, it's just as much about self-love as it is about other love at a time like this. And nurture yourself a little.
And I'm going to put the presentation in the event.
Thank you.
To make sure. And if anyone wants to reach out to me separately, absolutely.
Yes.
I love this last comment here from Charles. For some, listening is the best present.
Yes. Isn't it just to be heard? To be absolutely really listened to and heard. Make sure that when you're in conversation, your mobile device is nowhere to be seen. Not on the table, not on the chair next to you, where you can still in visual perception. Apparently we lose 10% of our focus, even if the device is in visible presence. So if you really want to be present and really listen, as Charles is suggesting, make sure that phone is in a handbag, on the floor, like just completely out of sight. That will make a difference too, and people will feel like you're making the effort to listen to them.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Have a great day. Sorry for some of the technical challenges I have, but I'm happy that we're able to have this conversation. Have a great Wednesday.
Thank you, Kenneth. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Bye.